Hi there. Welcome to the new weekly Ozone radio show coming to you from sunny Bermuda. The show features items of general interest, including health, finances, lifestyle, with a dash of common sense and humor. Your hosts are Robin Trimmingham and Bill Story of the Olderhood Group. We hope you enjoy the show. So let's do this.
Welcome to the Ozone Weekly Radio Show. I'm Robin.
Hi, and I'm Bill.
And today we're chatting about how learning is changing. Bill, I think this is a very timely topic because it just seems that every day that I'm looking online, I see a new way that technology is being introduced or interjected into the learning process.
Yeah, I think that's right. When we talk about change, we use that word probably there are two separate ways to look at that word change. One is the change that you have decided to, do yourself. And then, of course, the other one is where change is forced upon you. And maybe you don't have any choice but to change. So I think those are the two angles that would have to be thought about.
Well, of course, you're right when you say that. It's interesting to me, though, because if you think about something like the aviation industry, well, pilots have used flight simulator technology for years and years to learn how to fly new aircraft better. And more recently, surgeons are training using AI and doing virtual surgery before they're practicing on real people. But it's interesting how this technology is filtering down into everyday life. For example, the other day, I actually saw an ad for an online game that was teaching multiplication to children.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I've got grandsons and granddaughters, and I mean, they're more high tech than I am. And at their respective schools, there is a tremendous amount more of technology, but again, that was partially created by remote learning. In other words, they weren't at school. So the idea that, you use the old sort of blackboard and the white chalk sort of thing, I mean, those days, I presume maybe have gone. So everything is very much online. They were doing lessons online. So, yeah, I can understand that there would be things like, as you've just mentioned, where, they're given a task to complete. And then when they get to the end of it, the results are sent to the teacher, all by remote. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's quite a big change. And would that be a change that has been pushed on them? I suppose you would say yes. Would the schools have done that regardless? Honestly, I don't know.
You're absolutely right. What fascinates me about all of this is how different generations of people are being affected and impacted by the advent of technology, and it's coming online at different rates in different places. Now, you just mentioned your grandchildren and school, and that's an excellent example because those are young people who will grow up doing everything practically in a virtual environment. So by the time they reach the workforce, I'd be willing to bet that how you work and what job categories exist is going to be radically different from what we're seeing today. When you are in your mid-career or later career, but still working, a situation like this can really add pressure to your life because you're left to your own devices pretty much to either figure out where you need to up your skills or to embrace the new technology that just arrives on your doorstep at your workplace. And I think it's really important for people to realize that if you're in this middle section of the career workforce, it's really up to you to own responsibility for keeping pace with the amount of change that's going on all around you.
Yeah, I think there are two things to say there. One is, as far as the kids are concerned, and I'm going to say this respectfully, they don't know any better. They're not comparing today's learning techniques and technology with the kind of thing, well, don't go too far back here, but the things that were done 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. So if they don't know about those, then frankly, they don't know any better. They're going to get a tremendous benefit, tremendous advantage going forward, particularly, as you say, when they go into the workplace, because they're going to have all those tools. But the other way to look at that, of course, is, and it's kind of what you're alluding to, is that people in their maybe their 40s, perhaps, who have been used to, they've been using Word and they've been using Excel and stuff like this, and they've been using email. But there are so many technologies coming out these days which clearly have some benefit. There's no question about that. I spend a lot of time, too much time, trying to understand new things that have popped up. And inevitably, you have to get on to their help desk and say, okay, I'm a bit of an idiot. What am I doing wrong? I would like to use your software, but frankly, I have no idea. I think the trick is, when I come up against those sort of situations, just call in one of my granddaughters and say, okay, fix it up, set it up for me. I mean, they'll do it in 2 minutes.
Oh, well, calling the grandchildren. Yeah, that is a great idea. I don't know how everybody's boss would feel about that as the grandchild being used as tech support. But, when we're all working from home, you just do whatever you have to do to keep going in some respects. It's interesting, though, because the amount of technology and the way that working in supply chain management and things like that are changing is changing at different rates at different points along the supply chain and in different industries. And I was thinking about that a lot this week when I was attempting to write my article for the Royal Gazette that's coming out. And what I realized is that, we're in a point in the free market economy where a lot of business is becoming more and more virtual, and we're still using pretty much, physical free market rules and thinking. And to some extent, people will say, well, that's how it should be. But on the other hand, it really makes you question whether or not the free market economy can function optimally in a virtual environment unless we have, a new way of looking at regulation, at, SEC requirements, and what is a fair market in the virtual world? What sort of business ethics are appropriate in this sort of an environment?
Well, I think also you've got another couple of pretty big factors involved these days. We're talking about going green, whether it's climate change, and we've just had COP26 in Glasgow, that kind of stuff. It's critically important, it's vitally important. And I think people are beginning to realize that there has to be change. We have to be thinking about things, doing things differently. The other thing, of course, is the ESG, the sort of environmental, social, governmental sort of rules and regulations that are coming in. More and more companies, large companies in particular, public companies, are having to adopt much more stringent methods and practices to look at the ESG rules. And, that's a big change. I'm not saying that they don't deserve to change, but I'm saying that is a big change, and that companies are saying, we realize that if we don't, then, that could affect our sales, it could affect our stock market price and so forth. So there are reasons outside of the company which have been brought into the company, like, as I say, ESG, etc., which are having a tremendous impact on some of those companies. So those are change situations that, frankly, again, going back to the previous example, those are changes being forced upon them because, if they don't, they're going to be left behind competitively.
Well, you're right, because ESG is a perfect example of the kind of situation that I was talking about. If you're not embracing the change and changing your business model, your business practices with the speed that these new sorts of regulations and requirements are being introduced, you're going to get squeezed out. And I think that's very easy for people to understand. But on a more personal level, I think the point I want to reiterate here is that you actually have a personal responsibility to be looking at your own skill set, at your own job, and saying, you know, if I'm being really honest with myself, is my job going to be here like this in 5 years? Where should I be learning? What new interests should I be acquiring? What new skills should I be acquiring? And how can I go about doing that effectively and proactively so that I can keep pace with how everything is evolving all around me in the new world ecosystem?
Yeah, but you bring in a different dimension there when you use the word personal, because the idea of learning to change or having to learn to change at the personal level has become a very acute situation over this past couple of years. In times past, did we take care of our health? Yeah, probably we did. At least we thought we did, or we reckoned that we did the best. But, this COVID situation, going over 2 years now, has dramatically changed the outlook that most people, not everyone, but that most people have about their own health. They're paying attention to, any number of things. They're washing their hands. They're wearing, a mask. Whether you agree with the mask or whether you don't agree with the mask, that's a change. It may not be a change that you want to follow, but it is a change. So paying attention to your health, breathing properly, making sure that your lungs are functioning and that you're not going to catch any disease, etc. That's a big change. And I think prior to COVID, I mean, I'm not saying that people didn't do that, but I don't think they did it in the millions and tens of millions, hundreds of millions of people around the world that we're now facing. So change at the personal level, particularly in the health area, has been dramatic. And frankly, I don't see that changing much. I think that's for the good, that people will pay more attention to their own personal health. And whether that's through things like going back to technology, telemedicine, etc., which combines very, very well with the desire to change, then I think it all comes together rather well.
Well, I agree with you that health implications are definitely playing a role in how things are changing and why they're changing. But I think probably we should have a whole show where we just talk about that. So I think maybe this is a good place to end things for today. You've been watching the Ozone Weekly Radio Show. Join us again soon.
Take care.